Blimey, how on earth are we supposed to do any sort of 2022 coverage on this channel? This has been one of the quietest years in wrestling history. What on earth are we going to talk about? I'm being facetious, of course, because 2022 was one of the most insane years in the history of our great sport, with much of that insanity centered around a Vince McMahon-less WWE. Amongst all the drama, it was easy to lose sight of the actual wrestling part of professional wrestling. Hey, we're allowed to call it that again. Thanks a lot, Uncle Paul. There were some absolute stonkers in the ring last year, but what do we care about those? Let's add some more fuel to the sports entertainment dumpster fire that was 2022 by examining some of the worst matches to grace a squared circle in WWE during it. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 worst WWE matches of 2022. Join us. Number 10, Roman Reigns vs. Goldberg at Elimination Chamber. It really is hard to know what to expect from Bill Goldberg these days. Sometimes he pulls out a really entertaining match, like his one against Dolph Ziggler at SummerSlam or versus Bobby Lashley at Crown Jewel. And then sometimes he squashes the Fiend or nearly kills The Undertaker. Mixed bag, eh? His match with Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship last year wasn't as bad as those two, but it still wasn't great. At Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia, Reigns and Goldberg opened the show with a match that was all big moves. However, this Goldberg was 5 years older than the one that put on a great similar match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 33. The explosiveness was just gone, the power was just gone, the threat that he would actually win was also gone too. It only lasted 6 minutes, but that was all the time we needed to see just how far Big Bill had fallen. We haven't seen him in a WWE ring since this match. Does that mean he's finally come to the end of the road? Almost definitely not. WWE will find a way to wheel him out again, and he will no doubt be headbutting ring posts into his 60s. Number 9, Nikita Lyons vs. Lash Legend on NXT. Two of the more heavily featured female talents on NXT last year, Nikita Lyons and Lash Legend faced off against each other twice on 2.0. And twice is all because Lyons nearly died during their second encounter. This match on the 26th of April edition of NXT got off to a hot start, with Legend attacking her foe as soon as she reached the ring. Sadly though, this was about as good as it got. The pair then clunkily made their way through a rope running sequence before Legend pushed Lyons out of the ring head first. She essentially toped the floor, smashing into the mat in a move that made The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25 look like Rey Mysterio in WCW. Thankfully, Nikita was okay, and she went on to win the match. This contest was sloppy at best and dangerous at worst. After Nikita's fall, it became very difficult to watch these two throw hands in fear of what might happen next. Put simply, they looked and felt very inexperienced, which is not something you want to be thinking about while trying to enjoy a wrestling show. Number 8, Trick Williams vs. Wes Lee at NXT The Great American Bash. Whilst 2022 was the year that saw the death of NXT 2.0, we still had to sit through its ridiculousness up until September. Apologies to Ross for slandering his favourite show. One such example of this nonsense came at the Great American Bash special episode of NXT in July. The Great American Bash is a name that holds much fondness for many wrestling fans. Ric Flair vs. Terry Funk, the first ever War Games match, Keith Lee becoming NXT champion. Well, now you can add Trick Williams rubbing lotion into Wes Lee's eyes to that list of legendary moments. The inexperienced Williams met the former MSK member at the Bash and didn't look brilliant between the ropes. He hadn't quite grasped the little flourishes that make a wrestling match good to watch, slipping up on transitions and failing to sell Lee's offense effectively. The match ended after just under 4 minutes when Williams lathered his hands with rubbing alcohol and stuck his fingers in Lee's eyes. Williams might have got the win here, but he did so in extremely unconvincing fashion. Trick Willie, more like Trick Silly. Hahaha, great. Number 7, the men's Elimination Chamber match at Elimination Chamber. Elimination Chamber 2022 was the first event of the year held in Saudi Arabia, and wouldn't you know it, it ended with one of the most confusing, boring matches of the year. What a shocker. 6 men entered the chamber: Seth Rollins, Matt Riddle, Austin Theory, AJ Styles, Brock Lesnar, and WWE Champion Bobby Lashley. Well, technically only 5 men entered, as Lashley got taken out by a flying Theory just a few minutes in. The bout ground to an agonizing halt as fans tried to work out whether the Almighty was legitimately hurt or not. He wasn't, by the way, just in case you were worried. Lashley getting taken out early threw the entire rest of the match off, meaning that Lesnar literally had to kick the door of his pod down to get in. He then promptly eliminated every other person in the match to win the WWE title in a massive anticlimax. Some people liked the match's chaotic feel, and Lesnar F5ing Austin Theory to his death off the top of a pod was cool, but on the whole, this match felt rushed and sloppy. Also, it led to number 6, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 38. Again. The biggest WrestleMania match of all time? More like the biggest WrestleMania disappointment of all time. Oh, sick burn, lads. In reality, nobody should have been disappointed by the outcome of WWE Champion Brock Lesnar versus Universal Champion Roman Reigns as the headline match for the second day of WrestleMania 38. By this point, they had had about 5 billion matches together. Not even having both titles on the line could save this one from joining the turd pile. It was your standard Reigns and Lesnar affair. Big move after big move. Lots of kickouts, and Reigns scoring the win after, let me check my notes, another big move. Despite seeing it coming a mile away, the match's outcome did not thrill those in attendance or those watching at home. Absolutely nobody was interested in seeing the main event of WrestleMania go to these two again, and the actual match did nothing to alleviate any of the fears viewers had going into it. Ah well, at least it was the end of the feud, right? Wait a second, is that a tractor? Number 5, Omos versus Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania Backlash. After returning from his absence caused by the Elimination Chamber match, a newly babyface Bobby Lashley was thrust right into a feud with the Nigerian giant Omos. The two met at WrestleMania, with Lashley becoming the first man to pin Omos. And what do you do when the babyface beats the heel on the very first try? You have them wrestle each other again 1 month later, of course. The twist to the rematch at WrestleMania Backlash was that Lashley's long-time manager MVP had turned on his charge to side with Omos. I don't really get why. Lashley was the guy who won at Mania. Why would you choose the loser over the winner? Anyway, Lashley did his best to get a good match out of Omos, but all that energy had already been spent at WrestleMania. That match was okay for the novelty factor and because Lashley won, but fans were just not interested in seeing these two tango again. In the end, MVP cost Lashley the match, setting up a 2-on-1 handicap match at Hell in a Cell. Great, a third match. That's exactly what we wanted. Number 4, the men's Royal Rumble match at Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble match is usually Christmas, a birthday, and a tax rebate all at once for us wrestling fans. The over-the-top showcase of meaty manness and womanness since 2018 is the most anticipated match of the year and is usually very, very fun. But not in 2022. In 2022, it was bad. It's almost as if this match was booked by NJF because most of the entrants were mid. Very few viable winners entered until the final 10 minutes or so, leaving audiences to slowly fall asleep as Rick Boogs tried to eliminate Chad Gable. No offense, lads. There were no surprises except Bad Bunny, who hit a Canadian destroyer, Shane McMahon, who got sent home pretty much immediately after, and Brock Lesnar, who everyone knew was going to enter and probably win. And guess what? Brock won. The sluggish nature of this match was made all the more tedious by the fact that this was the Royal Rumble. This was supposed to be 30 men, all vying to main event WrestleMania. Instead, we got 25 lost souls wandering around the ring, waiting for the 5 actual stars to come out. Also, and I didn't want to mention it, but Kofi botched his rescue spot, which was just sad and basically summed the whole thing up. Number 3, Ronda Rousey vs Shotzi at Survivor Series War Games. You know a match is bad when a call to fire one of the participants starts trending on Twitter. On an otherwise stacked card, Ronda Rousey defended her SmackDown Women's Championship against Shotzi. Literally nobody expected the green-haired warrior to actually beat Rousey, but few could have predicted just how badly this match would go. Firstly, it had very little heat to it, meaning that it was incredibly hard to actually give a toss about the action. Secondly, Ronda botched several big moves, most notably a DDT on the apron that looked about as smooth as a gravel pit. Fans were against this match before it even started, as they knew that it was nothing more than a stopgap between Ronda's actual proper feuds. The least it could have done was give Shotzi a showcase on a big stage to build her up for the future. The fact that it was sloppily done only added fuel to the fire that Rousey is not a very good wrestler. I, for one, would like to clarify that she is a good wrestler, by the way, partly because I do believe that, and partly because I would like my arm to remain attached to my body if it's all the same to you. Number 2, Liv Morgan vs Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam. Poor Liv Morgan. We all thought that she was set for her biggest year yet when she won Money in the Bank. Our theories were confirmed that same night when she cashed in the briefcase to beat Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. The former member of the Riot Squad, remember them, was flying high, but all it takes is one bad decision to completely derail a wrestling career. At SummerSlam, Morgan defended the belt in a rematch versus Rousey. The two had a fairly decent showing before the match suddenly went insane. Rousey got Liv in an armbar, but Liv managed to roll Rousey into a pin. However, the referee didn't see that Morgan had actually tapped out before the 3 count was made. This was the total opposite of conventional wrestling booking. It should be the heel who retains the championship through sneaky means, not the other way around. Also, the match only going 4.5 minutes didn't exactly help things either. This ending actually turned the fans against Liv, and she has yet to recover. She lost the title to Rousey just a couple of months later and hasn't had a sniff of the main event scene since. Poor Liv. Number 1, Mr. McMahon vs Pat McAfee at WrestleMania 38. In many ways, this impromptu bout from the second night of WrestleMania 38 was the greatest thing to happen to professional wrestling in 2022. 76-year-old Vince McMahon had his first match in a decade when he stepped into the ring to square off against SmackDown commentator Pat McAfee. The former football player had just beaten McMahon's apprentice Austin Theory, and now the chairman was out for revenge. What followed was a total farce. Theory attacked Pat from behind, McMahon threw some of the flabbiest clotheslines of all time, and then won the match after punting a football into the downed commentator's chest. It was absurd, completely and utterly surreal, and summed up all the best bits about professional wrestling. But no, seriously, come on, it was really dumb. There was no actual wrestling to speak of, with Vince looking more like he was going for a Sunday stroll than competing at WrestleMania. Not to mention, everything that's transpired with Vinnie Mac after the fact has made it much harder to laugh at him being a goofy old man. Harder, but not impossible, mind.